My fingers wouldn't stop shaking as I read the text message again. My sister-in-law had just told me she was moving into my apartment, the one I bought with every dollar I had saved for 6 years. Not asking. Telling. And the worst part? My husband had already said yes. I set my phone face down on the kitchen counter and took a slow breath. My name was on that deed. Only my name. And I had a plan. Let me back up. I'm Claire. I'm 31 years old, and 18 months ago I did something that terrified me and thrilled me at the same time. I quit my corporate HR job in Dallas after nearly a decade of 70-hour weeks, back-to-back performance reviews, and a salary that looked impressive on paper but disappeared faster than it arrived. I had one goal: buy a place of my own before I turned 32. Not a starter home with someone else's name on the mortgage. Mine. Fully, legally, undeniably mine. I had $310,000 saved. Not inherited, not gifted. Earned. I drove a used Civic for 8 years. I ate lunch at my desk every single day. I skipped every girls' trip, every concert, every impulse purchase that other people my age treated as personality traits. My coworkers thought I was boring. My mother thought I was obsessed. My husband Daniel thought it was cute. A hobby almost, like I was collecting coupons instead of building a future. I found a 2-bedroom condo in a mid-rise building in Austin, 3 blocks from a trail I loved, 12 minutes from Daniel's office. The listing price was $287,000. I paid cash. No lender, no co-signer, no joint title. My real estate attorney, a sharp woman named Patricia Holloway, who wore reading glasses on a beaded chain and had seen every kind of family dispute imaginable, filed the deed with my name alone, Claire Marie Bennett. I kept the paperwork in a fireproof lockbox under the bed. The day I got the keys, I sat on the empty floor of the living room and cried. Not from sadness. From something I didn't have a word for yet. Relief, maybe. Certainty. Daniel came home with champagne that night and called the place our new home. And I smiled and didn't correct him. We were married. I loved him. Of course it was our home in every emotional sense. But the deed said what it said, and I had chosen that deliberately, because I had watched my mother lose everything in a divorce when I was 14, because I had seen what happens when a woman puts her security in someone else's hands. The paperwork was not a statement about our marriage. It was armor I had built for myself, quietly, over years. We had been living there for 4 months when his sister came to visit. My sister-in-law, I'll call her Renata, was 38, twice divorced, and had been living with their parents in Beaumont for the past year after her second marriage ended badly. She was the kind of woman who entered a room and immediately began rearranging it, not physically, but socially. Deciding who mattered, who didn't, what the pecking order was. She had never particularly liked me. I was too quiet for her taste, too self-contained, she had told Daniel once, in a conversation he later repeated to me with the nervous laugh of a man hoping I wouldn't react, that she thought I was cold. What she meant was that I didn't perform warmth for her benefit. She stayed with us for a long weekend in February, and within 48 hours she had commented on my kitchen organization, asked twice whether we were planning to have children, before it was too late, and told Daniel he looked tired in a way that was clearly meant to imply I was failing him somehow. I was polite. I refreshed her coffee. I asked about her job search with genuine interest. I did not take the bait. On Sunday evening, as I was cooking dinner and she was sitting at the kitchen island with a glass of wine, she said casually, "I've actually been thinking about Austin. The job market here is so much better than Beaumont, and you two have that second bedroom just sitting there." I kept my eyes on the stove. Daniel said it would be fine to bring it up with you. I turned around then. Did he? She smiled with her eyes and not her mouth. Just a thought. It makes so much more sense than me paying rent somewhere I don't know anyone. And honestly, Claire, you're barely using that room. I didn't answer that night. I waited until Renata had gone to bed, and then I had a conversation with Daniel that I had been hoping we would never need to have. He was apologetic in the way he always was when he'd done something he knew was wrong, Not remorseful, exactly, more like inconvenienced by my reaction. He said he hadn't made any promises. He said he just told her it probably wouldn't be a problem. He said Renata was struggling and she was family, and could I please just think about it? I thought about it for 2 days. Then I told him my answer was no. He accepted that, or I believed he did. 3 weeks later, Renata texted me directly. Not Daniel. Me. The message said she had found a job in Austin, a real one, starting in 6 weeks, and that she was so grateful for the offer of the room, and she was planning to move in on April 14th, and could I let her know what parking spot she should use. I read that message 4 times. There had been no offer. There had been a firm no. And somehow, in the space of 3 weeks, my refusal had been quietly erased and replaced with an invitation I had never extended. I called Daniel immediately. He was at work. He picked up on the second ring, and before I could say anything, I heard it in his voice. That slightly elevated, slightly careful tone that meant he already knew why I was calling and had already decided how to handle it. She needs this, Claire. I said, no, Daniel. I know what you said, but she's my sister, and she has nowhere else to go, and it's just temporary. It's my apartment. Silence. My name is on the deed. I paid for it in full, in cash, before we moved in. I never added your name. I never added anyone's name. And I told Renata no, and you went around me. And now she thinks she's moving in on April 14th. More silence. Then, quietly, I didn't think you'd make this a legal thing. I'm not making it anything. I'm telling you what is already true. He said he needed to think. I said fine. I hung up and called Patricia Holloway. Patricia listened to the whole story without interrupting. When I finished, she asked me 2 questions. Did Renata have anything in writing indicating she'd been offered the space? And had she given notice at any current address or made any binding commitments based on this supposed arrangement? I didn't know the answer to the second question, so I started paying attention. What I found over the next 10 days was worse than I expected. Renata had not only given notice at her parents' house, she had told her new employer that she had stable housing in Austin. She had placed a deposit on a storage unit 3 miles from my building for the furniture she couldn't fit in the room she was taking. And this was the part that made my stomach drop. She had shown a photograph of my building to the bank when she opened a new local checking account, apparently representing it as her upcoming address. There was nothing technically illegal about that last part, but it painted a picture of someone who had made irreversible plans based on access to my property that I had never granted. I also found out she had told at least 3 people, including her new manager, that her sister-in-law's place was basically a given. Daniel knew most of this. When I confronted him, he said he had assumed I would come around. That phrase, "I assumed you would come around," told me everything I needed to know about how he saw my no. Not as a decision, as a starting position. I spent one evening sitting with Patricia's advice and my own thoughts, and I made a choice that felt both very calm and very final. I was not going to argue. I was not going to beg my husband to respect my property rights. I was not going to spend the next month having the same circular conversation while Renata's moving date got closer and the pressure on me mounted. I was going to be ready. April 13th, the evening before Renata's planned arrival. Daniel was cooking dinner when I sat down at the kitchen table with a folder. I placed it in front of him and waited until he looked up. "What's this?" "The deed to this apartment," I said. "I'd like you to read the name on it." He didn't pick it up. "Claire, I'd also like you to look at the second document. That's a formal notice of trespass, prepared by Patricia's office, with Renata's name on it. If she attempts to move belongings into this unit without my permission, Patricia will file it immediately. I have also spoken to building management, who has confirmed that no one can be added to the access list without the leaseholder's written authorization. My name is the only name on the building's records." Daniel stared at me. "I'm not doing this to hurt your sister," I said. "I'm doing this because I said no, and no one listened, and I will not have my home taken from me by assumption. You're my wife." "I am. And this is my apartment. Both things are true." He pushed back from the table. He was angry in the way that men get angry when they realize they've miscalculated. Not hot anger, cold anger. The kind that looks for leverage. "If you do this," he said, "she has nowhere to go. She has her parents' house for 6 more weeks, which is when she gave notice. She has a salary starting in 4 days. She has options. She chose not to use them because she assumed I would cave. This is our home, Claire. Show me your name on the deed." He left the room. That night, he slept on the couch. I slept in our bed with the lockbox on the nightstand, the same way I had slept on the floor of an empty apartment 18 months ago, certain of exactly one thing. April 14th arrived like any other Tuesday. At 9:17 in the morning, a moving truck pulled up outside my building. I watched it from the window. Renata got out of the passenger side in a yellow blouse, directing 2 movers toward the entrance. I met them in the lobby. Renata stopped when she saw me. She looked past me, toward the elevator, then back at me, recalibrating. "Claire, good morning," she said it the way people say things they rehearsed. "Good morning," I said. "You can't come in. Excuse me. You don't have permission to enter this unit. You were never granted permission. The building manager has your name on a list. If you attempt to bring belongings upstairs, I will call the police and Patricia Holloway will file the trespass notice she prepared." One of the movers looked at the other. Renata's face moved through several expressions very quickly: surprise, fury, calculation, and then something smaller and more naked that I hadn't expected. Fear, maybe. Or the specific humiliation of a plan collapsing in public. Daniel said, "Daniel doesn't own this apartment. I do. I paid for it. My name is the only name on the deed. Daniel cannot authorize your entry." "You are unbelievable," she said. Her voice was shaking. "I said no in February. I said no clearly. You made plans anyway. I kept my voice even. Not cruel, just accurate. I'm sorry you're in this situation. I genuinely am, but I didn't create it." She called Daniel. Right there in the lobby she called him, and I stood 3 feet away and listened. His voice came through the phone loud enough that I could hear pieces of it. He said, and I will not forget this, he said, "She can do that. It's her apartment, Renata. I told you." Not, "I tried." Not, "I'm sorry, I thought she'd agree." He said, "I told you." Which meant he had known. Somewhere under the assumption and the pressure and the quiet confidence that I would bend, he had known what the answer was. He had just hoped it wouldn't come to this. Renata left. The truck left. The lobby went quiet. I took the elevator back upstairs. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time. I wasn't triumphant. I wasn't even relieved, not yet. I was thinking about that sentence. It's her apartment, Renata. I told you. Thinking about the version of Daniel who knew it was my apartment, who knew I had said no, and who still let his sister make irreversible plans and watched the momentum build toward my door. Daniel came home early that evening. He sat across from me at the kitchen table, and for the first time in weeks he didn't try to manage the conversation. He just looked tired. "I handled this badly," he said. "Yes. I kept thinking you'd see it the way I saw it. That family comes first. Your family, at the expense of the one thing I built for myself." He nodded slowly. "I know. Daniel, I need you to understand something. Not just agree with me to end the fight. I need you to actually understand." I leaned forward. "I have never once asked you to choose between me and your sister. I asked you to respect a decision I made about my own property. That's not a high bar." He was quiet for a long time. "Then, I didn't think you'd hold the line." "I know. That's not a good thing for me to have thought." "No," I said, "it's not. We talked for 3 hours that night, real talking. The kind that is uncomfortable and slow and doesn't tie up neatly. He told me things I hadn't known, about growing up as the stable sibling, about the weight of being the one who was supposed to fix things for Renata, about how my steadiness had somehow, in his mind, become a resource he could draw from without asking. I told him things I hadn't said clearly enough. About my mother, about the lockbox. about what it meant to me to own something that couldn't be taken. I don't know yet where we land. I know that I love him. I know that love is not the same as trust. And trust has to be rebuilt from specific actions, not general intentions. I know that we are in couples counseling now with a therapist named Dr. Yolanda Webb, who has a gift for asking the question that is 3 levels below the one you think you're arguing about. Renata found a furnished studio rental near her office. She moved in 2 days after the lobby. She has not spoken to me since. Daniel talks to her once a week, briefly, and I don't ask what they say. My apartment is still mine. Claire Marie Bennett, sole owner, on file with the county and the building and the fireproof lockbox under the bed. Some mornings I sit on the balcony with coffee and watch the trail below and feel something I still don't have one perfect word for. Security, maybe. Not because I won an argument, because, when everything was pressure and assumption and the slow creep of someone else's plan into the space I had built, I held the line. My name is on the deed. And I intend to keep it there.